Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Deborah Peters Show. My name is Deborah Peters, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you join me today. This is going to be one of the best shows I've done in a long time because it really gets into your assets, your wealth, and your cash. And, there's just so much going on in the world right now in terms of money and, with the inflation that we've got that we're dealing with. And I don't know, it's things are a little wonky, a little crazy. And a lot of people are very nervous about a recession, not like we're not in one already, but the doom and gloom on the table everywhere I look, it just gets to be overwhelming for me. And I thought, rather than just seeing random stuff online, posts and information that, the dots really don't connect, that I would have on an expert. So before I introduce her, I want to say thank you for being here and attending my video podcast, my show every single week. We run live on Tuesdays at 12 noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern time. This is a passion of mine. It's something that I've wanted to do for years. And this is my second podcast, actually. What really prompted me to roll this one out was everything we went through in 2020. I think you all know my story by now. At the time, my head office was in downtown Los Angeles, and it was just god awful. I don't think I've ever been in anything that's that dark. And I mean like dark energetically, and negative and just soul sucking, just absolutely soul sucking. So I thought to myself, this isn't going to last forever. At some point, we're going to exit out of this thing that's going on, whatever you want to call it. And when people come out of it, they're going to be the worse for wear. And so I decided to create a show that actually addressed that. When a person goes through trauma and shock, the nervous system really gets hammered and it takes it on. And in many cases, it just debilitates one from joy and happiness and productivity and spontaneity and relationship dynamics that they might have already been involved in, that now that they've, been isolated, they don't know how to relate to people. So that is why this show is born. And the whole point of it is about consciousness. How can we raise, and I use that word a lot, but I guess one of these days I should explain it. How do we raise our consciousness? And what is that? Well, consciousness is just basically understanding yourself. It's a self-awareness level that, and there's no right or wrong because we're all evolving and we're all going through life. And as we learn and go have life experiences, and then we start to just really decide to create a better relationship with ourselves, we become more consciously aware. And so the 5 pillars that I focus on are health, wealth, relationships, self-expression, and business. So today let's talk about money. Let's talk about wealth. And my guest is just absolutely fabulous. She lives on a farm, and she does all sorts of amazing work for people on their finances, their wealth, and their assets. Ladies and gentlemen, Joan Van De Griek, welcome to my show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. And my goodness, I cannot be any more excited. I'm so excited that we're talking about just the mindset behind what it is we're going to dive into today. That's kind of how we lead. And yeah,
mindset's everything. It's I've been working on projects with corporations and developing programs for them to shift their corporate culture to include a whole level of self-mastery and mindset that will give their stakeholders and their team and their employees something really um, genuine
Mm-hmm.
to, because we've all been struggling. You know, it's almost 2024. And so 4 years later, here we are. And I think we're all a little bit beat up. So
Yeah.
mindset's everything. So I'm curious. So tell me about this farm you live on. I mean, I'm a farm girl. I'm always fascinated by that.
Yeah. So I love horses. We had horses when we lived in New York and we came out here. And like they always say, horses are like potato chips. You can't just have one. One leads to two, two leads to, and in fact, right now we have three little ponies, technically one miniature horse, two Shetland ponies, a quarter horse, and then a Friesian at my farm.
A
And then I
Frisian,
have,
wow.
yep, and then I have two more that are in training at my trainer's farm. So we love to compete and all that thing. And then we were kind of like, we should just buy a bigger farm. And it's been great. We have 70 beautiful acres of hayfield out here. We grow rickery for cows. We have cows calving all year round in the wintertime. It's
Wow.
150 head that come here every single winter to calve. That belong to my neighbor, but they're using our field, and we're surrounded by just all this wide open state and local land. It's essentially the Great Plains.
Yeah.
And as far as you can see, all we have are pastures. It's just
Oh my
awesome.
gosh.
And it's rare, right, these days. So I love it.
Yeah. Hang on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on to that. Absolutely. I know it's something that's on my agenda for the very near future is, to get some farmland and do some fun stuff there, livestock, and maybe a retreat center of some sort. We'll see. We'll see how that all flushes out. Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be beautiful.
So
I know it's such an amazing, it's amazing silence, right? It's not silent, but it is. It's just, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a farm that's just right outside of the city limits where I'm at these days. And I think all that's left of it really it's about 435 acres, which is substantial,
Mm-hmm.
But I think at one point it was much, much bigger. And kind of like the city sort of encroached around it. But I drive out there, maybe it's 10 minutes from town. It's nothing. So I'll drive out there, maybe a couple times a week and at least once on the weekend. They've got goats, they've got horses, they've got a great river. And it's fascinating being there, and it's just the sound of the silence. Like there's nothing to hear other than the sounds of nature just living.
Exactly. I know. I always say my noise pollution is, we have a donkey about a mile away that you can hear braying, and I'm like, that's my noise pollution, and I love it because I came from New York, like the New York City metro area, and I'm like, I'll take that any day. Totally different kind of noise pollution.
Yeah. How long has it been since you've been out of the city?
Oh, officially 18 years. We had a smaller farm before we came to the bigger farm. So we started with like 3 acres, and we were still surrounded by other farms, but it was, way more manageable. And then, like I said, I got a few more horses, and then a few more, and then here we are. We needed more space.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Yep. I'm curious, do you grow a vegetable garden?
No. I am not the green thumb in the family. I can balance everyone's checkbooks and do all of their farm tax returns, but I am not the green thumb. So we leave that to my neighbor. She has a beautiful garden, and my kids just literally go there almost probably 2 or 3 times a week just to pick vegetables and whatnot. Yeah. But we do, fun fact, have 13 beehives on our property that a bee farmer comes in, and so we have lots of farm fresh honey, and we just, we'll live the best life. We all kind of like do our own thing, and then we swap out. So there's a lot of trading of goods. Yeah. Yeah.
You got your own little system going on there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So right now, I just did an episode with another guest a couple weeks ago about just all the negative talk about the banks. Let's kind of start there. So, banks collapsing. Man, I mean, there's just a lot of fear-based perspective around that. do you have anything positive to shine a light on that for
Well,
people?
you know, it's all fluid, right? And I know it's doom and gloom. We've seen these things before. And I think the reality, you know, and unfortunately not that long before. You know, I think you have to respect the fact that banks serve a purpose. Um, I work with a lot of small businesses, mom and pop size.
Yeah.
And I think the struggle with that, and you know, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but I don't think they realize, and this is, I think, kind of a little bit of a disconnect, is the banks won't even talk to you till you're about 3 years established, right? And then they have their purpose to help you kind of get to that next step. But ideally, you know, one of the things that I'm a firm believer is if you can figure out, and there's ways, and I think you've probably dived into this a little bit with your other guests, but there are ways that you can structure yourself that you can set yourself up for success. And if you can get to the point where, and some debt is good. I'm not like necessarily like be completely debt free and all those things. Banks serve their purpose. They're a stepping stone. But I kind of want to say is don't make them the end.
Right.
Right. They serve their purpose. I don't want to, you know, I love my banker. She's great for my clients, but you know, you have to find that balance. And that's what we try to do with our clients is like, okay, let's take a step back. Let's plan where we want to be. Let's look at the different ways of getting there. And a lot of times banks are still a part of that and are still a stepping stone in that, but they shouldn't be your only option. And
I know because it feels like a block. Like it feels like if they're your only option and they say no.
Absolutely.
It's like, you know, it makes people feel like, well, we can't do it then. And I think, you know, when we talk about mindset, that's the biggest thing about mindset in any endeavor, whatever it is you're going to do, whatever it is you're going to create, whatever business you've launched is the mindset. Let me just put it this way. It's, you know, it's when your beliefs match your desire, then your mindset's in the right place. But if you have this desire to grow a company or grow your business, but your beliefs say it's not possible, then you're completely out of whack.
Right.
And, you know, the chances of it working out are pretty slim.
Exactly. I honestly think if you're at that point, you need to just be a W-2.
Right.
Because part of the business growth is just being willing to take that risk. Yeah. But it needs to be strategic risk. So I'm not saying, you know, just give it all up. But I think, and that's kind of, I don't want to like put down the spirit, but like I think everyone gets so excited to be an entrepreneur and start this stuff. But you need to take a step back and go, okay, am I cut out? Because there's going to be way more failures than success in the beginning. But like, it's how do you treat each of those failures, right? Like, is it, okay, this is going to just wipe me out and take away my steam? Or is this going to be like, can I take a step back, think about what I did wrong, and then leverage what happened that was right or wrong into something better? And that's where I see people get tripped up a lot.
That makes sense.
And, you know, people see success, they see my business success, and it's like, well, I can just do that. I'm like, absolutely. However, be ready, because there's going to be a lot of times where it's going to stink.
Yeah, like you're going to get your ass whooped, you know?
Absolutely. And you have to be really thick-skinned and resilient to that. But man, I mean, I used to do the corporate world, and the idea of being on 30 hours of conference calls a week, I just got to the point where I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And it was so freeing. It was terrifying, but it was so freeing. And now I can't even envision going back to the corporate. Like, I'm like, I don't even, like, let's just block the Indeed and all those things from my inbox, because like, it's just, you know, it's, I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, even for me, it's, I make this joke all the time when people want to have a meeting online, and I just flat out tell them, like, I am zoomed out, you know, I'm zoomed out and I'm teamed out. You know, if you're going to expect me to sit in front of this thing for a whole day, having meeting after meeting after meeting, and not being able to be dynamic and move around ain't going to happen. It just, I'm just like, it's just not. This is the 1 hour a week that I spend in front of a video. And I just convert everybody to a phone call. And I don't mean that to be impersonal, but a lot of good things happen for me when I'm on a phone call.
Yeah.
I've got my headset on, I'm moving around the room. Sometimes I walk out into my backyard. It just is, it frees up my energy. I can think better. I can respond easier. I can get my point across. When I'm sitting here, it's like, I can't wait to get up. I'm like ants in my pants. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think we see that now. I'm always like blown away with my daughter at school because like they have like, I don't even want to call them a fidget chair, but like they have these like wobbly chairs. Like it's so different from when I was a kid where you have to, it wasn't like strict Catholic school, but like my parents did. But like, you sat at your desk for 3 hours, then you went to your lunch, then you sat at your desk for 3 hours, and then you went home. And now they have so many little things. Like she has like almost like a bicycle pedals underneath her desk, and it's like wobbly because they, I think there's something about you. It may seem like you're not listening, but actually by freeing that up, it's kind of like the little doodling on your pad. It lets you actually tune in way more at a listening level than just a, eye focus level. It's just how do you learn best kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we learn through our senses, through all of our senses.
Absolutely.
Not just through seeing. In fact, I learn more by, it's dynamic for me. I learn more by a combination of my senses, and that requires movement. Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm curious about something then. So you're doing tax returns. What's your real focus around asset protection then?
Yeah. So, it kind of all started with a few years back. I had my public accounting firm, and it morphed into like, hey, what do you do for retirement? And we had those kind of conversations. And I went and got my life license just to understand better what I was doing, never ever expecting to do it myself. And my aha moment was when I was listening to a lecturer start to explain just how you could position these for like tax advantages. And it was like all of the light bulbs went off. Back when we went to get the farm, and I think everyone thinks that if you're a CPA, you're an expert in every last thing. And I did income tax-based audits. I was an auditor. I did financial reporting, very good at income tax, but it wasn't like this little niche. And it was kind of one of these things where when I attended that lecture, like everything just opened up. Because at the time, I had talked with all of my old tax managers and things like that. I literally was at the point where I'm like, I just want to buy the farm, and we had to buy all this equipment. Same thing, right? The banks won't lend you the capital that you need to buy the equipment unless you've been established for 3 years. But then you have to be a beginner farmer to get the capital if you're working with like things like the USDA, which I'm like, well, I'm totally beginner. I've never done this. But that's not true. You have to be 3 years in, which means you need to self-fund your own capital. Yeah. And I remember listening to this lecture, and it all worked out. We got the farm, we got the equipment, all the things. But listening to this lecture, this big light bulb went on. I'm like, oh my God, why do CPAs not know about this? I mean, what we've been taught in school is very different from what really you could be doing to position these things so that you aren't liquidating a 401k and you aren't doing this. Like you can literally take an old 401k, roll it into a self-directed RIT, and basically go buy the property and then lease it back as your farmland, or, borrow from a life policy and purchase the assets that you need. And it was kind of this aha, which is.
Oh, it looks like I lost her. She must have lost her connection. And here she comes back. There we go. That was
sorry
quick.
For that. We are in the farmlands.
Yes.
But it was kind of one of those things where I realized no matter how smart they are, they only are aware of what they've done in the past. Right? It doesn't mean that right or
Always.
wrong or anything like that. But you're only as good as what your experience has brought you. And, I was quite a bit younger then. And it was like this big aha, like, oh my God, my bosses and my old partners don't know everything. Right. I'm like,
Wow.
I know more about, and it was very empowering. And I just started deep diving into it and being like, let's find some better ways to do things. And that's why I started kind of literally just geeking out. And I don't want to get into the details of how much
Sure.
levels I geek out. But what I realized is, wow, how wonderful is it to take, and I'm speaking about life insurance, and there's different types of life insurances for different purposes. And we're very much about that. But if you can take one tool, and we just use life insurance as a tool, just as we use on a tractor on our farm, but that tool can do multiple things. And oh, by the way, it protects us, especially for like, I think we spoke a little bit like law enforcement as before we got on this call, because my husband was in law enforcement, and there's a lot of changes to law enforcement these days.
Yeah.
But if we can use this one tool that can better provide liquid, like access to cash for capital, and better prepare our businesses or protect our businesses from lawsuits, because now those assets that are actually like a typical investment would be subject to judgment liens, depending on your state, judgment lien foreclosures. We could better protect our assets by putting our money somewhere else, repositioning it, but we still have all that access to doing what we want for our business, for our retirement, disability in my case with my husband. Wow, how freeing is that? And it's all it is simply putting your money someplace different. You may have not heard of it, but if you're willing to consider it, how powerful is this tool?
Yeah. How much flexibility.
Absolutely.
Last year I had a guest on, we did a series, and he is in a particular kind of life insurance product that you may have seen some of the episodes that you can use as a bank. Like you can literally borrow against that money.
Yep.
And I just was fascinated by that, because I've had a lot of people over the years approach me about buying life insurance through them. I get hit up practically every day. And especially through LinkedIn, I get bombarded. But
I bet,
what's interesting is this guy really had something, I felt, powerful to offer people. Do you use that product as well?
Yes. And so there's different kinds of life insurances. So there's just kind of a little bit broader, there's what we call term and permanent. And then permanent has some subcategories. So term is like the stuff you think of for like mortgage protection. When you have a young family, it's very a better price point for most as an entry level. When we talk about what the gentleman was talking about, I suspect for the most part he was using what we call whole life, which is one type of permanent life insurance. And that's the type that's great for like banking upon yourself and creating a source of cash flow and things like that. It's tax-free. There's also index universal life, which is what I tend to do more of. I do a little bit of whole life, but I do a little bit more of the index universal life, which works very similar to the whole life. The big piece is whole life will give you a dividend that's tax-free of about somewhere between 3 to 5, usually about 4%, like probably on average between the different companies. And that's where it's more of a company difference rather than just necessarily the reflective of what's happening in the economy. The one I reflect on is the one that's reflective of what's happening in the economy. So it's called indexed universal life. We use the S&P indexes to credit the account, but we don't invest in it. There's also another type of life insurance where it's called variable, where it actually has investments in it. I don't really play in there because there's a lot more fluctuations. The two, like the gentleman was describing, the whole life and the index life, those have a lot more. A lot of them have what we call like a 0% floor. So you can't lose anything you've put in or accumulated. Those work better for what we're talking about, which is retirement planning, access to cash for, say, a business or for personal changes, life events, like in my case. That it's those two products. They have little differences between them. They all have their purpose, Mine's a little bit more long-term, as far as seeing the impact of the profits, or I shouldn't say the profits, but of the interest credited.
Sure.
But they all have their place, and it's kind of that's where the strategy comes in, and that's where you have to have those deep conversations about really your goals. And we really kind of, when we go through those things, we look at not just retirement goals, not just business goals. We're looking at timelines, because, a shorter term, a product that's going to start actually presenting a lot more tax-free dividends sooner would make more sense if you're at the age of 60 versus me putting something on an infant.
Right.
Right. We're really looking at like, okay, what time period are we looking to really realize and have it sort of peak? And so that we really want to align that with goals. And so, one of the biggest challenges is people just actually verbalizing their goals. I'm kind of
Well, it's amazing how many people don't even know what they are. I can always, when I ask somebody, so, just give me your top 5. Like, I don't need a big laundry list, just your top 5. And I'll get this whole list of what they don't want.
Yeah.
And they have no idea what they really want. And then many of them confuse goals with values.
Yep.
It's like, well, you want to be happy. Well, you can be happy now. Happiness is not a goal. It's a value. It's a state. Do you run into that a lot too, where people are just like, this is what I don't want. I don't want this, this, and this.
It's shocking how many couples have never even talked about it amongst themselves. Like, I'm sort of blown away, especially when you see, like, I could see newlyweds, as you're still kind of like, okay, let's just get to the house, get the family going. I can kind of understand that piece of it. But I see couples that are like very close to retirement that have never even they don't even have clarity on like when they want to retire.
Not even as an individual, much less as a couple. Yeah.
It's that makes the conversation so hard. And I'll be honest, a lot of times, we do kind of like a one-on-one get to know you. And if they can't talk about those things, I'm like, you guys have homework. You got to go do homework. You got to start talking to each other, because you're not ready to meet with me. And they're not paying you to coach them through a
clarity moment. Like, come to the table with your ducks in a row, basically.
It is. And it's, and that's one of the hardest things I've had to learn as I kind of transitioned. Because, when you talk about accounting, the goal is get the tax return done. It's very easy.
And move on.
Or maybe we're trying to refi our house. So, how do we present this? It's so much clearer when you talk to people about like their longer term goals. And I can't believe how they have not had that conversation. And I realize, you might not have it like exactly knotted up, but the fact that they don't even know if they want to stay in the house or travel, or I'm like, what are you talking about?
Waiting for you to tell them.
Yeah. Do you want to buy a boat? I'll make it so you can buy the boat. Do you want to buy an RV? Tell me. I don't care. There's no judgment. I just want to know so I can have some fun along this journey with you and help you realize some of these goals. And then they're like, oh, what should I do? And I'm like,
you know what, Joan?
I would buy more horses.
Right. So early on in my coaching days, I got a lot of clients that asked me, I'd be working with them in their business, or I'd be working with someone in a corporation and his team. And it's usually, I know that sounds sexist, but, usually still these days, it's men leading the charge. But that's another dialogue. So then they would pull me aside and go, man, you really whipped my whole thing into shape, and everybody's happy and performing, and we're all communicating and things are moving forward. Do you think you could do that for my marriage? So I sort of stumbled on this side hustle coaching thing that was couples coaching.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people were married for a decade or two, and They had never talked about their goals.
Yep.
They had never discussed their values. They just, life came at them,
Yep.
they just worked through it or not. And usually the not part was why they were in front of me. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like, what's missing here? You know, we've had goal setting programs and workshops for eons. And here I am, I'm sitting in front of a professional couple that are pulling at least, you know, 1 7-figure income, if not 2.
Yep.
And you have no idea.
Yeah.
No clue.
I think they get into survival mode. I see that a lot with my officers and first responders. And I get it, right? You're just kicking the ball down the street to just kind of get through your shift, get through the next week, get to the next
so stressful.
break. It is so stressful. But I also encourage them, like, you guys got to like start dreaming about it. Otherwise, it's just going to consume you. And, you know, you're going to have this opportunity. I mean, you saved well. I mean, you know, they tend to save very well because they, you know, some of them are really good about dreaming about retirement. And in many ways, they're better than some of my business owners because they kind of procrastinate it. Whereas, you know, these guys are like, I just want to be done and I want to just enjoy my time. And they start to really put some, I noticed it's somewhere around age in like the 50s, like early 50s, where they put some big value on their time and they realize that how valuable time is. And it makes it easier because now it's like, okay, I can feel it coming. They're almost starting to embrace it and open up to it. And it's so awesome because it's a whole different level of conversation versus like when you work with a small business owner who's just like, I'll get there when I get there. Like they're kind of
they're dealing with day to day. You know what I noticed with law enforcement is that let's say their 25-year is their retirement, and then that's when they get the cash out and all the rest of it. Yeah. Around year 15 is when they're really starting to go, okay, it's the countdown.
Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh.
I've made it over the mountain. I'm on the other side, and I have less time before I exit than I did before when I joined.
True.
Yeah.
Yep. And I will say those guys know their numbers. I mean, you ask them how much they have in their 457, they're like, boom. And then they know all their passwords to the stuff. It's not, whereas, you know, some of my other guys are like, let me play with the password. I don't know. You know, I mean, they're on it. They're embracing it. And it's so fun to plan with them because they're like, I'm going to go hunting. I'm going to go fishing. I'm going to go whatever. I don't care what it is. I just want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Brings up my day.
Yeah. So this is really fascinating. Where do you see, this is a loaded question. We have an election year coming. It's 2024. Now, what I find interesting is when I'm talking to, let's say, small business owners, or even people that are in upper management or executive leadership in mid-sized companies, when an election year comes, things just stop moving.
Yep.
And they want to ride it out. And for me, it's like such a waste of time.
It's a waste of energy.
And yeah, you could be focused on what you want to create instead of where did this mindset come from that, and I hear it all the time. Let's wait and see what happens. It's like, well, I'll tell you this much in terms of how your mind works. What you don't wait and see what's going to happen. You actually see it now, and then it happens.
Right.
They just are like, I don't know. They go into some kind of, not everybody, but you know, it's either fight, flight, or freeze, and they kind of go into the freeze mode. Do you see that too?
I do. I think the first time I really noticed it was when ACA was a big thing, right, in the elections, because I was working in healthcare and we did de novo startups of ambulatory surgery centers, imaging centers, hospitals, all that stuff. And everything came to a screaming halt. I mean, literally, there were projects that had been in the works for a good 12, 18, 24 months, screaming halt for a solid 6 to 8 months, just waiting to see what was going to be the outcome of the election. And it just seemed like such a waste, right?
Because
you had all these people queued up, you had spent all this money, and you're just going to freeze and go, let's wait and see. It was ridiculous. And I think that was my first awareness, because I was younger then, and it was kind of like the first time I was seeing stuff like this. And plus it was healthcare, right? I was so close to healthcare. It was just to be expected, I guess, a little bit. I feel like with our 2 elections ago, our 2018 election, it was very like, we knew what changes were coming. The candidates were very vocal about what they wanted to see happening, at least from like a tax perspective. And I mean, it was just huge amounts of change. Those changes won't sunset until 2025. And I feel like it's been extremely quiet, right? And I hate to say it, but I'm literally telling people, let's wait and see, because, and I don't think it's going to be quite that far out, but I feel like we really haven't seen any of our candidates commit to anything, right? We know the laws are going to sunset.
Yeah, it's a bit early.
Yeah, it's a bit early, but you know, with the 2018 election, we were hearing a lot as a council.
But this is the whopper.
This is going to be a huge one. This can go 50-50 either way. And the tax code could go right back to all of our pre-2018. We just kind of got everyone accustomed to all the changes now, maybe in the last year or so. But then COVID hit and then all the stimulus. And then that kind of stirred the pot with what we were doing with things. But like, this could be huge, or this could be like business as usual as we know it. And, you know, and I hate to say, I don't want to be doom and gloom, but if we're going into the recession and we have these tax laws flip back to where they were, it's going to be a double whammy for people, because the taxes are going to go up, costs are going up, you know, it's just, and then interest rates are going up. It's like, you know, take a deep breath, and, you know, now's the time to make sure you have some stuff set aside in your pre-planning, because the reality is it's going to get tighter.
That's why you have to plant that garden, Joan.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. So that's a really good insight. How can people work with you? What are your top 3 services?
Yeah. So, you know, we have a signature method now, because we need to bring some clarity around all of this. Why is a CPA doing life and annuity planning? And so we look for clients that really want to do tax minimization, life and long-term planning, but maybe have a little bit more awareness to anonymity, civil risk protection. And so it works really great for business owners, my first responders. So we look for people who want to kind of hone in on that life and long-term planning first, but want to do it with a tax minimization mindset in the background. So yes, we can do tax preparation, but we're doing it for the people that first want to be in that place of, let me look at taxes, not for the day, for the moment, or for the year. I want to look at it over my lifetime and see how I can minimize it over my lifetime. And then we kind of just do the tax preparation as a complement, I shouldn't say complimentary, we do charge for it, but as a complement to our life and long-term planning. And really it starts with a discovery call. You know, you can definitely check out our websites, but it starts with a discovery call. And we just say, hey, are we talking the same thing? Are we wanting to work the same way and approach things differently? Because I'll be honest, there are people where I'm like, you know what, I'm not the right person for you. We're not the right fit.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to just go all in on equities, go for it. It's just not my cup of tea. We're going to, at the very least, balance that stool with a couple more pegs, and we're not just going to go topsy-turvy into one thing. And so we want people that want balance and who are really looking over it, literally not the 1, 3, or 5 year. We want to look over your lifetime.
Good.
And that's who we want to partner with as clients.
That's good. Yeah. And so what's your URL for your website?
Yeah, super simple. Fetchyourwealth.com. So like fetch like a ball, yourwealth.com. And you can book a call there. We can just, you know, get together. It's all complimentary, those calls. And we literally just get to know each other, get to know where you want to be and, you know, how can we help you just achieve those goals? And it's a great thing, you know, and it's one of those things where you don't have to be 100% at that goal to start day one. We will help you get to that point as well. I just like to say,
just have some clarity on what it is.
Yeah, some clarity, and sometimes it has to be a little bit of financial repositioning to look at things slightly different. We can help you get on track. It's just you have to have a desire to have a tax minimization and long-term mindset.
That's good. And so did you have something that people could take away? Do you have a download or something?
Yes. On our website, we have some tools. We have some tax planning tools. We have tons and tons of just like 1 to 2 minute little like tax tips, and some of our life tips with life and long-term planning tips. And all of that is right there available in one place. Super simple. And you can kind of dive into the subtopics you might want to just learn more about without having to necessarily pay for an advisor.
Oh, that's awesome. So fetchyourwealth.com.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joan, and she's going to take care of your taxes. She's going to teach you about your wealth and your asset protection. So get over to our website, book that discovery call. Thank you so much for being here today. This has been a lot of fun and enlightening. And I'm so jelly about you having your farm. That's awesome. Good for you.
You'll have to come here sometime. It's a little paradise.
I would love to. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you. You know, we're right on the eaves of Thanksgiving. So whatever part of the world you're in, you don't have to have an actual holiday on your calendar. Give thanks every day, you know, gratitude, count your blessings, as they say. What's that saying about gratitude? Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns nothing into something, and it turns something into more. So God bless everyone. Thank you for being here today. Happy Thanksgiving. And I look forward to seeing you real soon. You have a blessed weekend. Love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.